Hello, I'm the Reverend Dr. Jeff Hayes. This is video number 4 in the series, The Urgency for Adaptive Reform. In this video I'm going to talk about the eldership. Now in the Bible, in the New Testament, elders are of two types that have a great deal of similarities. The first is rulers of the synagogue. An elder is someone who is established in a community, has a great deal of respect from community leaders, has the means to help endow and build a synagogue, usually has a big extended family because they're a person who has had some success, and people in the community look up to them. And so when you see the elder in a synagogue context, this is who we're talking about, somebody with a long standing history in the community, respected by many, looked up to, and deferred to. If you get into a house church situation, it's precisely the same. An elder in a house church situation is somebody who has a large house, large enough to house the church, someone who has an extended family, a longtime member of a community, a person of some resources, because they can house a church, somebody deferred to by the community, looked up to and honored. And this is an elder. You know, in 1 Timothy, when the author instructs Timothy to ordain elders in cities that he visits, it's a very real question whether they become elders because Timothy ordains them, or whether Timothy ordains them because they are elders already. I believe it is the latter, not the former. Now, up until about 100 years ago, precisely the same was the case in our country and in our Presbyterian churches. An elder was a person with a long history in the community, a person who is respected, somebody usually with a generosity to help fund the building of the church, somebody deferred to and respected in the community, somebody long-term residence and status. These were elders. They did not rotate. They were ordained seldomly, about as seldom as we see an ordination for a pastor. They served their entire lives in the eldership. Well, in the 20th century, we got all scientific on the eldership. Scientific management in the churches. Look it up. It's a free download from the dean of the University of Chicago Divinity School in like 1916, and had a great deal of influence. What it was decided is that you don't need people in an organization that know everything about the organization and know how to do everything except the top guy, the top boss. Instead, what you need to do is to divide the organization into sectors or committees. And then you need to put a person knowledgeable over that program area, over the committee. And each committee doesn't need to know what the other one is doing. They just need to know what their committee does. And long about the middle of the 20th century, some way our church decided the eldership would be best to chair these committees after this committee structure had become firmly entrenched. And then about 1955, it was decided that, hey, we need to restrict the terms of eldership to 3 years and rotate people in and out. After all we're talking about is program managers. There were two reasons that were pushing this. One of them kind of honorable. Our northern church, quote unquote northern church, the UPC USA, had decided to begin ordaining women. And they thought if we rotate the eldership, that's a good way to get women elders quickly. We get some of these lifetime elders to retire. That was noble, but one of the ignoble thoughts behind that. The other reason was that, hey, we could get those bull elders out of the way and get some pastoral innovation in the churches. Those bull elders that pastors had been bumping their heads up against. And so we started rotating elders. Rotating elders. And by the time you get to our time, 50 years later now, 50 years of decline of the church later, you know what an elder is? An elder is somebody who serves 3 years as a program manager. Usually a middle manager caught between the boss The pastor and the customers, the congregants, and they're responsible for handling a program for 3 years, and they're going to rotate off, and they're not going to be elders anymore. Oh, I've heard the screed. Once you're ordained an elder, you're ordained for life. And I've heard people with a straight face argue that there's actually something to that ordination. Let me ask you this. You meet a pastor someplace, and you start talking to him, and you say, hey, what church are you a pastor of? The pastor says, I'm not a pastor of any church. Well, okay, what churches have you pastored? And the pastor says, 20 years ago, I was pastor of a church for 3 years. And that was it. And you say, and you're a pastor? Oh, yeah, I'm a pastor, because once I'm ordained, I'm a pastor for life. Okay, that may be. But if you're ordained and you're not in the office, what does your ordination mean? Can you really call somebody a pastor who pastored a church for 3 years and then rotated out of the pulpit never to go back? I'm not denigrating the eldership. I'm not denigrating elders. I'm denigrating what we've done to them. I don't buy that line that you're ordained for life, because if you're not in the office, no offense, but I mean your ordination serves little purpose besides some ill-defined personal or corporate spirituality. We've denigrated the eldership from pillars of the congregation to program managers. We've taken them and rotated them in and out like this big mouse wheel, running and running and running, and we strip the eldership of the dignity of its position. We strip the eldership of the dignity of its position. There's no peerage between pastors and elders. Used to be in presbytery, because you would have elders who served for their entire life. And of course they went to presbytery every meeting. Now we have pastors who spend all their time at presbytery, and maybe a congregation will elect an elder for 1 year to attend presbytery, and they go in and they rotate out of that. So who are the real members of presbyteries? It's not the elders who keep rotating in and in, it's the pastors. The eldership, how far it has fallen. Let's ask some questions, shall we, of the eldership. The same questions we have asked before in these videos. Does our eldership hide or reveal our Reformed identity? How about this? Does our eldership hide or reveal our congregation's particularity? And let's add the third one. Does our eldership lead to more people leaving us than joining us? Let's ask these questions seriously. You know where I stand. I am furious about what we've done to the eldership. I believe firmly in the scriptural model of elders. And yes, I believe an elder ought to be a pillar of a congregation. An elder should not rotate. And best of all, an elder should not chair a committee. An elder should oversee the work of the congregation, be the ones to whom the congregation defers, not because of dominance, but freely, because they're people who have been there a long time. They've been in the community a long time. They have the regard of the community and of the congregation. That's what I believe an elder ought to be. And they ought to oversee all the work of the congregation. What have we done? What have we done? Does our eldership hide or reveal our Reformed identity? Eldership, we're called a Presbyterian church, and our elderships are program managers. Does our eldership hide or reveal our congregation's particularity? You see, who represents the congregation in the community? Is that reflected in our eldership? No offense to all of you faithful Presbyterians serving as elders. But honestly, does our eldership hide or reveal our congregation's particularity? Finally, we call ourselves Presbyterians. Does our eldership lead to more people leaving us than joining us? Are people coming to a church because of the pastor and the preaching? Is that why people are attracted to our congregations? Should not they be attracted because the congregation is founded on pillars, faithful elders who represent the congregation to the community, who are able to bring people from the community into the congregation, who have standing and status, yes, status, regard, who have a long-term commitment to the community. Well, I look forward to this discussion. May the Lord bless you and keep you safe. May the Lord lift God's divine countenance upon you and give you peace. May the Lord smile on you with a big smile and be gracious to you, now and forevermore. Amen.